I would like to call the Prudential Committee meeting to order on March 16th, 2015 at Summit Street School. It is now 3:35, and first order of business is visitors and staff to be heard. I don't think there's any extras here, so we can move on from there. We'll go right into the principal's reports. And so, since we're at Summit Street School, we will let Principal Grunling go ahead and start the show.
Welcome to Summit Street School. Glad to have you here. We're really excited to talk about writing today. We have been working all year long with a professional developer from Teachers College Columbia on writing, and specifically the writing project, which is a really different approach than I think the way that we all grew up writing, and the writing is so rich, and I'm really excited to see our student work that we're going to talk about today. But part of that process, working with a professional developer, is going into the classrooms and having that experience of watching a professional developer write, sitting and looking at student work, really talking about how we look at student work, how we assess student work. So to start with, the third grade is going to give us the overview of Writers Workshop, and we have Jean Cole and Leslie Pennell to talk about that process that all of our students go through K through 3.
All right. Should we speak from where we're sitting? Or
Any way you like.
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay. So we're just gonna do a brief overview of the writing workshop and what that means when people say Writers Workshop. It actually means something very specific. So we'll give an introduction, and the other grades have some things to share. But we are following the Lucy Calkins unit of study, Writers Workshop. That's what our professional development has been all about. And this is a guide. This isn't one of the units. This is her overall guide, kind of explaining what it is. But the overall setup, when we say Writers Workshop, we mean that it starts with our mini lesson, either a review or connection to what they already know. It might be an introduction to something new. It includes modeling, us showing them, here's what other authors have done, or here's what I'm doing. As teachers, we're writers, and I'm always, writing my own story and modeling it for them. After the mini lesson, they have time to go back to their seats and write. And most of Writers' Workshop should be spent writing. Ideally, in the book, it should happen, 5 days a week, obviously, and they say 45 minutes to an hour, which is what we've got in third grade. So most of that time should be spent with them actually writing. We tell our third graders, you should be able to fill a page in 30 minutes. That's the goal. And they get so proud when they are filling those pages. It's a lot about stamina and volume at first. And once they can get the volume, once they have the stamina, then we make it really good. So they spend a lot of time writing. Some of that might involve conferencing with a teacher, editing with a peer. A lot of it is just writing on their own. And then at the end, there's typically some sort of sharing period, whether it's a quick class make a circle, everyone's going to share, or share with your partner, or even if time's running out, it might be a quick okay, point to somewhere where you fixed punctuation in your piece, or thumbs up if you used a new word choice. So different types of sharing, but there's usually some sort of share at the end. And then Jean will give you a little bit more.
What we're actually teaching in the Writers' Workshop, the way that Lucy Calkins sets it up is there are elements of good writing that every genre needs to include, and so while we're teaching each genre, we're always coming back to those same elements. So they're looking at leads and how to introduce information in an informational piece, get your readers ready for that. But there's also a lead in a narrative writing. So they're always doing leads in different genres. They're always doing transition words. In third grade, we do transition phrases. Now finally, in conclusion, a little later, some of those pieces that happen in both narrative and informational pieces as well. Persuasive writing, any kind of genre, there's always an ending, a conclusion where you're wrapping it up, making your readers think about the most important parts of your story. There's a way you're organizing. In third grade, we're really pushing paragraph format, so indenting, understanding that this is one whole idea, I've got a new idea, I need a new paragraph, and that comes back with every genre. That's part of the structure of the writing, and then we focus on developing is some of the most important parts, which is elaboration, which is explaining your ideas, going back, using multiple sentences to talk about one item rather than a one-sentence answer, moving on. Craft, and that's different for each genre, but that's where writers are really going in terms of, so for personal narrative, I not only told my story, but wrote it in a way to get readers to picture it, and it's the same for information, capturing your reader's attention using expert words. There's also just language conventions. So spelling, using word wall words, using resources like quick words and dictionaries, and even partners. They always have a desk partner that they're always referring to and using as a writing resource, and punctuation. In third grade, we really work on commas, on quotation marks, as well as any ending punctuation. So that reoccurs in every unit. And then the units we study in third grade at the beginning of the year are the personal narrative unit, true stories from your real life, informational writing, where they're experts about something, and then research writing, where they're actually what we decided to do was research countries around the world, to connect to our social studies unit. Diversity, and then research, and then write informational piece based on the research. And then they do
Persuasive writing.
Yeah.
We're going to do a new unit, fairy tales.
Yeah.
There's a whole Lucy Calkins unit about fairy tales, which they're very excited about.
Poetry.
Some poetry. So, and a lot of those units resurface. Like I know there's personal narratives in the other grades and informational writing. So it's a very structured curriculum.
It's good.
As we transition to kindergarten, it's going to talk about informational text and how-to books. I was going to transition with a short little story. I was lucky enough to be invited to a publishing party in one of the kindergarten classes, as they're really learning that art of writing, that you're writing for an audience. You're writing, somebody is going to read that, as opposed to we just write to put words on the paper and it's about you in your head. This is about conveying a story or a message to somebody. And when I got invited to this, the how-to party, it's very special and very wrapped package of the how-to book, and I read the how-to book to them. And as I read each story to each student, I looked at them, I said their name, and as I read it, it was, they wrote the piece, they know the piece, and they were so excited to hear the piece, as if they have never heard it before. The excitement that, as Jason was just telling us about running to the Learning Center, as I read their piece, and I would say it, they were on like the edge of their seat, what's going to happen next, and it is their piece, and they all had that same enthusiasm for each other at a publishing party. So Beth Dahl, Carrie Mahoney, and Kim Hamilton are going to talk about kindergarten and informational how-to.
Yeah, so the how-to is our Unit 3, and I was reading through just the beginning part of Lucy Calkins today, and part of it said, the improvement that you'll see in children's writing will be more dramatic over the course of kindergarten than in any other grade. And I stepped back and said, that is so true. The idea of just like going from pictures to the idea of convincing them that they can write words, breaking those words apart, like there's so many steps that they have to go through just to be able to write the word cat. But they do it, and not only do they do it, they go from narratives into writing how-tos. And so in the how-to unit, they do different bends, and so this one has 4 different bends, so it kind of groups 4 different ideas into throughout the unit. So the first bend in the how-to was first just telling them that they could write how-tos and comparing how that's different than a narrative story, and also showing them how they can teach other people how to do stuff. Then the second bend was looking more at mentor texts, and I know Kathy Duggan in the library, and we'll be sharing some of these mentor texts that we've used, but there is actually a lot of great how-to books, and so showing them these mentor texts and revisiting the same text for the whole week and looking at different parts of it and having them try that in their writing. The next bend was talking about how you can write to teach somebody at your school or teach somebody else how to do something, and that was the whole idea of like, we're going to gather one of our how-tos and we're going to give it to someone to teach them how to do something. And they're thinking, I'm only 5 and 6, I don't know how to do things, but they actually know how to do quite a few things, and it's little things, big things, like everywhere you look are things. So a big part of it too is breaking down how to do things. One thing that we did was put on our jacket, and they told me the steps I was putting on my jacket, and then it was upside down, and so realizing the steps they actually have to go through to put on a jacket correctly. And then the last part was giving your book. The last bend was it's just not just writing, you actually have to go back and edit your writing and then give it to somebody to teach somebody else how to do something. So yes, and then we also used the how-to do an on-demand that they used for the literacy committee, partly just to look on if we were going to use this as part of our assessment process. So that was a good practice for everybody to give that assessment and use it. I think Kim's going to talk about how we did it in the classroom with our books.
So we did use some of these mentor texts that there's a computer-based program called Pebble Go that Kathy Duggan found, and now they're doing other things and building upon that. And so they're really basing it on what we're teaching. And so here's how to build a busy rocket, how to make a bouncing egg. That's pretty exciting when you're 5 or 6. Really interested to hear about that. And so we read some of these mentor texts, talk about the transitional terms, first, then, next, finally. and kind of look at it, try some of these things out, see how they work out, and then we try to talk about, have the class brainstorm things that they're experts at, things that they already didn't even realize that there's things they're expert at. I mean, everyone can make peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And so we kind of brainstorm different ideas, and then we pick one to sort of do as a class and do a shared writing piece, which is over on the wall over here behind Tim. And so how to make a s'more. So we talked about it, we had different ideas, and we came up, with those different steps. First place the marshmallow on a stick and roast it on a fire. Next place the marshmallow on a graham cracker. Then place a piece of chocolate on top of the marshmallow. Last place another graham cracker on top and eat it. So we kind of go through that during the week, and we talk about how you're going to do your own writing and you're going to start working on it. And I kind of point out to them that, this is a lot of words. In kindergarten we're looking for quality versus quantity. So they kind of are a little overwhelmed if they're thinking they have to write that much. So then we kind of scaffold for them a little bit and talk about how can we do these different steps in less words. What could we say? So we kind of think, first place a marshmallow on a stick and roast it on fire. What could we take out? How could we make that, be a short sentence? Roast a marshmallow. And then next place the marshmallow on a graham cracker. Put it on a graham cracker. So we go through each step. So it's less words. It's a little less intimidating. And then they start to feel like, okay, I might actually, be able to do this. And then we encourage them to start writing, and we have paper for them. We start with having the paper has some of these transition words, the first, the next, the then, the last. They get so ingrained in them that when we give them paper without those words, they just start using those words. And they're sounding out all the words on their own. So they don't want to write tons and tons of words. They want to write it in a 5 or 6 year old manner. So we go through different phases of that, and finally we get to the final piece, which I'm going to pass on to Ms. Mahoney to share.
Sure. So, as Mrs. Dahl talked about too, we really want them to understand that we value what they write and that it's important, and they get an opportunity to share it with their peers, with the adults in the school, and it's considered a published piece. We're also fortunate enough to be able to do some integration projects with Mrs. Foley. So we did, we took some of our books that we made and we developed covers for them. We developed end pages for them through projects like bubble art and rolling on different kinds of, using different kinds of materials to make some pretty cool splash paint and things like that. So they really show ownership of their book. We also, one of the things we talk about in the Common Core we work on with writing is students working together and conferencing to consider ideas of others in terms of if other students give them ideas. Sometimes in kindergarten they say, I'm not going to do that, or that's not what I was going to say. But just thinking about how could you change that? How could you add detail? How could you look at spaces in between your words and conventions and things like that? So I brought a few samples today that we would like to share. The first one is how to do chores. And it's by a student in my room, and it's how to do chores. You go into the basement, and there are some speech bubbles that say time to feed the cat. That needs feeding. Next, you scoop the bowl into the food, then and you pour the bowl of food into the cat bowl. And the cat's saying meow. The cat's name is Popo. And then you go back up the stairs. Finally, and then you go back up the stairs. So there's an illustration of her going back up the stairs. If you could pass, that would be great. This one is how to babysit. First, go to their house. Next, make them dinner. Make the kids what they want. Do you know what that is? Question mark. Then the dinner is all eaten up. And then the kids go to sleep. And finally, you go home. That's how you babysit.
Stay there.
Another one is how to make a 100th day of school project. She went right into it. First, make the 100th day of school project. Next, give it to your teacher. Then your teacher will hang it up. Let's see. And then your friends will look at it. Finally, you get to take it home. So she made a lot of labels for her pictures, made some diagrams at the school. So that one was pretty cute. Let's see, a couple more here. The next one is about swimming. How to swim. First, get your bathing suit. Next, go to the bathroom. Because you wouldn't do that at the pool, right? Put on your bathing suit. And then get your shades and your towel. Finally, go to the pool and swim. So she's a self-proclaimed swimmer already, I guess. And finally, how to grow a flower. Let's see. First, get a seed. Next, put the seed in the hole. And she's saying, hey, sun, come out. And the next one, then the seed will grow a sprout. Here she's saying, awesome. And then it will grow more. Oopsie, we should get some water. Let's see. Finally, it will be pretty. And she says here, wowsy dowsy. So, like I said, along with peer conferencing, they are editing several times, making changes to sight words that they realize that they now know how to spell. They're making it look the way that they want it to look, and then presenting it to another person is pretty important as a how-to, as a teaching book and informational book. So I'll pass that one around.
Thank you. And when we think about thinking more about Beth's statement about the growth over kindergarten, these are students that not all of them identified all 26 letters of the alphabet on the first day of school, and to make this progression, and it's not somebody sitting there as a scribe writing their thoughts down, it is their pen to paper, making those words whatever way they can, and it's absolutely a craft that these folks have to decipher those words and know exactly what they say. Our first grade teachers, Dave Neal and Rachel Manns, are going to talk about the progression over first grade.
So when we thought about how the Writers Workshop has changed our kids' writing this year, we thought that the biggest difference we see is how much they're writing at the beginning of the year and then how much they're writing at the end of the year. And in November, his nonfiction chapter book is organized into chapters. He has 5 chapters laid out on a table of contents. This is the same student, just 2 months later. He has at least 6 sentences on his first page. He has, like I said, 5 chapters. It's a chapter book about dogs. So chapter 1 is dog toys. Chapter 2 is types of dog. Chapter 3 is dog colors. Chapter 4 is how to care for a dog. So he lays it all out in multiple chapters with multiple pages. He even went so far as he ran out of paper, so he drew one on the back. So we were saying the biggest difference we've seen with this writing program is the amount of writing that we're seeing from kids. And this was November. His story right now that he's doing, we did opinion, and now we're just starting realistic fiction. He already has 3, the same student already has 3 pieces, and we just started it on Friday. Last Friday. So in just, a week, he has 3 different pieces already going. So we're seeing length, lots and lots of writing, and then kids are going back and revising their writing.
Yeah, one of the big things about first grade writing is that we do a lot of things about us. So small moments, personal narratives, the opinion pieces tended to be things that they really liked. When we met with our reading coach, one of the things she talked about was the book series Elephant and Piggy. And so for the opinion pieces, my class decided that they really wanted to write about Elephant and Piggy books and why everyone should read them. And so they did a similar thing. They organized them into chapters with introductions, with a chapter about the elephant, a chapter about Piggy, a chapter about their favorite book from the series, and then a conclusion. And they're amazing. I mean, they've gone again from the beginning of the year when they say, my favorite book is Don't Let the Pigeon Drive a Bus because I like it, it's funny, to talking about, individual characteristics of characters. Things like elephant is very patient. Piggy is very, is very fun-loving. Piggy likes to explore. Piggy likes to do things that Elephant would never think about doing, but always includes Elephant. So they've generated a lot of extra information because it's something that they like. And poor Mrs. Duggan's been trying to get the Elephant and Piggy series back, and my classroom won't let them up to the point where I'm going to spend my extra money she's helping me to buy a set for our classroom because they just, they've been so enamored by those books, they've made them their own. So, we write a lot of things that we really know about. Right now with realistic fiction, they're so excited because, they get to write a story that is mostly true, but fitting in a little bit of something to make it fictional. And we have all kinds of things from baby brothers and baby sisters, who turn into monsters and who never cry. And I said, well, what's the fiction part of this? My baby brother always cries. So the fiction part is that he doesn't cry. But they've really grown. And I think one of the things that was really neat for us was our Flynn field trip this year. Came at a great time for us because, as we're pulling from them to get them to write more and more and more and more, our Flynn field trip was Schoolhouse Rock, and as we listened to, Conjunction, Junction, and all the different Schoolhouse Rock videos and things to, get them prepared for going to the Flynn. One of the things that it did for us was it gave us all those parts of speech. And so we were able to incorporate a lot of that into, matter of fact, in my classroom, we made a giant chart from all of the different parts from those videos, from the songs that Schoolhouse Rock did, to say, hey, do you have an interjection in there? Do you have something added to that sentence to make, somebody really want to read it? So a lot of our sentences start off with, ouch! Or, just different things that they've picked up using, our opportunity to go to the Flynn and incorporate that into writing, which came at a great time because, we were hitting that kind of 100th day part where we're a little bit, okay, how much more can I give you? I've been giving you everything I can for writing, and all of a sudden this next piece came in to give us a boost that we needed. So it's been amazing growth. I think one of the things that has changed over the years in terms of writing is that now that we have a specific program and a map to go and follow, it allows them to build in such a place where, if we have a day in which we say, Writer's Workshop is not on the daily schedule, we hear about it.
They'll write during recess, they'll write during indoor recess, choice time, they'll come in the morning and write instead of doing whatever activity is going on. Yeah.
So they've really, and that's, I think for us in first grade, that's one of our big goals is to really get them over that hurdle of it's, at the beginning of the year we hear a lot of, it was fun, I had fun, it was fun. That was my weekend. I wrote about my weekend. And now when they look back at their journals over the course of the year and they say, I didn't write this. Who wrote that at the beginning of the year? You did. So it's been a great progression to just watch them grow and to see them really love it. And then a follow up with today. We came as a first grade group to see Jason, and then went right to lunch. And I know as we were lining up at lunch, all we kept hearing about, can we write as soon as lunch over? Can we come back and write? Because they wanted to piggy off of that. They were so excited about.
We had to extend our writer's workshop today. Instead of just 45 minutes, we had an hour and 15 minutes.
So it's just the elaboration part is what we really work on in first grade, and it's just been great to see them really buy into that and go. So, and our third person who isn't here, our third first grade teammate is Donna Hall. Unable to be here. She's helping out a family medical issue at home, but we just wanted to make sure that that she's, her class is doing great things in there too, and she wishes she could be here. She can't today, but her class is just growing as writers every day as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I think first grade, my watching from the outside, seeing that perseverance piece, seeing from the short weekend to the end, that perseverance. And I realize now that when I went into a first grade classroom to Mr. Neal's today, that I was just drawn right in by a student on the Elephant and Piggy part 2. I walked in, student walked out to me, can I read you Elephant and Piggy? Sure. And I sit down, and to realize the perseverance to stay in that book. Elephant and Piggy is, might be one word on a page, might be 8 words on a page, but to turn that page 50 times and stay. Elephant and Piggy is not short books at all, but drawn into, and I remember sitting when I first sat down, and he goes, do you know Elephant and Piggy? I said, I don't. He's like, all right, here you go. Brought right in. We have our 2nd grade teachers. We have Sue Villapek, Eve Trubley, and Megan Turcott, who are going to talk about procedures, lab reports, and what a great time with the information and the informational text that the 2nd grade has really been focusing on, and coral reefs with the Great Barrier Reef virtual field trip.
I guess our writing process for all this even started way back in June, because some of us, not just our grade level, but other grade levels, were able to take Beth Moore's writing class last June when school got out. And it generated some conversations about how are we going to spend all this time on writing that we want to spend? Like you said, it's 45 minutes to an hour. So one of the things we talked about in June, in July and August, even when we met, is how can we incorporate writing into some of our units of study? And so that was one of our goals this year. And so that's why we're going to kind of talk about more the science end in incorporating writing. In trimester 1, one of our science units is force and motion. And so during that piece of writing, we worked on how to write up procedures of their experiments and how to write final conclusions, and how to do kind of spin-offs from those, steps that they start way back in kindergarten. How do you write up those steps of experiments for procedural writing? And Eve brought in some examples of some things that kids did for their force and motion.
So these are an example of some lab reports the kids wrote, and so they all come up with an essential question in the beginning, and this is, they set up a ramp, and they want to know is what's going to go, they have a little toy car, is it going to go off the ramp and go onto the carpet, and will it go further on the carpet, or will it go further on the bare floor? And that's part of our science unit, looking at the element of friction and gravity. And so they have to go beyond where they've been before. They have to make a hypothesis, and they have to support it with evidence, and then they go through and they do the experiment, then they have to write the conclusion. We did another one where we created catapults. And so they could come up with some sort of experiment, and it was, will a cotton ball go further in this? Will a little heavy ball go further in this? And so it really focuses on drawing evidence from their experiment and then supporting that, using that evidence to and detailed support for their conclusion.
And another big piece of, for writing is writing nonfiction. In 2nd grade, you spend a lot of time reading nonfiction, learning about nonfiction text features and that type of thing, and then how do you then apply it to incorporating into the writing pieces of our day, our writer's workshop. And so our science unit, Animal Tales, the main focus is animal adaptations. What do animals do to survive in their habitat? So we started as a whole class learning about polar bears and features of the polar bear's body, features of the polar bear's behaviors, from stalking their prey to still hunting and that type of thing, and showing them in little small steps how do you write pieces of reports. And then the kids selected an animal of their choice that they wanted to write an animal report from, again, spinning off from even in 1st grade when they did those table of contents, their chapters and all of that. So they had to go and they had to take notes, they had to learn how to use different resources, which internet resources are valuable through Kathy's advice and all of that. And they had certain categories of things to look for. And then they took their notes and then started writing their reports. And different classes kind of came up with different ways to present their reports. And that's what Megan's going to focus on.
So the whole big nonfiction unit, so the ones that Eve just showed you, we did that in October.
Right.
So we split this unit to finish up the next half when we did the animals, which we just finished in February.
Yep. Right before vacation. About a month and a half.
Yeah. So after they did their research for the animal when they went to write it up, one of the big things is writing across pages, which in first grade it's write a lot. So taking kind of what they do in first grade and bringing it into second grade. So they again have to do an introduction to pull the reader in, and then as they were planning, they had to decide what was going to go on each page. So again, they had the table of contents, habitat of their animal, predator, prey, behavioral adaptations, physical adaptations, and with that, so they had the writing piece, they also brought in reading elements too. So features of nonfiction text, so in these, and I'll pass them around, you'll see table of contents, photographs with captions. Some kids chose to do tables, glossaries, so if they put a bold word in, they had to write it in the back and say what it was. And another thing too that Jean had showed was the checklist that the kids have. It's also broken apart by grade, which we found helpful. So with the information text, which will be helpful next year too, now that all the kids have done it at least 1 year, the program. They can kind of see, we always show them what second grade looks like. So if they're doing leads in second grade, getting the reader interested and also naming the subject, but if they want to try to push themselves, they can see what it is to do in third grade. So what their teachers next year will be looking at. So this is another helpful checklist.
And this was so valuable because for years we've been trying to find meaningful rubrics for how do you score writing? And writing it's personal and all that. So it's like, how do you score writing? How do you find out if they're really kind of headed in the right direction that you want them to head in? And each genre of writing has its own rubric. And so when we start our units of study, we do an on-demand, say, okay, you're gonna write about a nonfiction topic. And then when we finish, we give them an on-demand again. And just again, to see how much more writing they do across the pages and all those different categories that are in that checklist, how their writing has expanded. And sometimes they'll sit and go, wow, I really did include a lot more. Because they can have copies of this checklist as well. And go, oh, did I use transition words? And for second grade, one of the things that they start to do is quotation marks, and in third grade, you guys feel that's huge in third group, making sure. So if they're gonna use quotation marks, are they using commas and all that? So we're so happy that we have a rubric.
And to be able to grade them collaboratively and look at a piece and say, well, I would have given this a 3, I would have given it a 4, why? But, and really fine tune to make sure that the results are apples to apples across the board.
And that's been a lot of our team time together that we have on Wednesdays and Thursdays. That's been really valuable because we have that time to sit down. And when we don't finish on a Wednesday, we can go back to it on a Thursday and sometimes even the following week. So, and to talk with Beth when she's come and to say, hey, we're kind of stumped on how to do this, or do we present this in the best way possible, especially when we did the Force in Motion. Yeah. That was tricky about how do you write up a lab report in second grade. So it was good. Still more to learn, but we're getting there.
Thank you, and that is an excellent point. It is not where we'll tell you that we have the Lucy Calkins units of study implemented in every grade fully all the way through. We have our pieces of it that we are good at. We have our things that we are getting better at, and we know where we want to go to focus in on and doing even more work on. I did want to introduce Shelley Underwood as our preschool teacher. While not producing big writing books in preschool, I can guarantee that we are on day 118 of school. There are about 118 different ways you can make mediums you could make a letter, because I think I've seen a different one every day that I walk in there. We have Beth Shelley, who is our third grade. She is our long-term coverage for Timothy Bergstrom, who couldn't be with us here today. We have Stephanie O'Leary in the back. Give a wave back there, Stephanie. She is our SLP, and Rosalind Hutton, our PE teacher. And I'm not sure if at the beginning I said Kathy Duggan, our library media specialist. Anything else we can answer for everybody on the writing process?
Tim?
I have questions. Okay, so at I think you kind of answered some of these, but maybe it's only partial answer. So kind of up a level higher at the board level. You know, I'm not quite sure how to say it, but kind of like success criteria. Like basically are we clear where we were with the kids in writing, and then how does that play out over multiple years? I mean, when you guys were talking third grade, I was thinking, well, is there a follow-up next year with fourth grade? You know, are we tracking the kids through there? And then maybe the real long term is starting with the kindergartners. Are we mapping that out so that way the kindergartners will have had it, probably, if we stick with it, for the whole time they were at Summit, so they will be like the most, you know, and so are you guys thinking about that kind of
I'm
stuff?
actually going to defer to Carrie Mahoney as our literacy curriculum leader, who meets with all of our curriculum leaders that are building, because that's not a discussion that we just want to have within Summit. It's a discussion that we have with Summit, Hiawatha, Fleming, ADL all together. If you just give us a brief answer on what the work looks like at.
Sure. So one of the things that is brand new this year that we just piloted was an on-demand assessment across the board, K through 5. So that means within this span, in the month of February, every classroom is giving a writing prompt on informational writing, and they have a window of when this has to take place, and then we meet back as grade levels and try to and score them, and also just none of that is being recorded at this point because it was just a pilot. But what it allows us to do is to all get on the same page, all to look at writing across time, across the grade levels, and eventually, seemingly next year, this will be added into Edmund Inform, which is our program.
Next questions, yeah.
Yes, so that we can look at a student's writing at least kindergarten through 5th grade, so that and all of those pieces are scored like that. All the craft, all of the components. So.
And we share the same writing coach. Fleming, Hiawatha, and Summit share the same writing coach that is also helping with that same way that we are delivering and talking about student work.
Right.
And calibration is important too. Meeting with three, like if I'd spoken, well, I would have given that student a 2. Well, I would have given that student a 3. Having that conversation, because it could be pretty open-ended, but it's at this point, I think you're feeling pretty good about it. That assessment is going forward.
Yeah, that's great. And I can't remember the school action plan. Are we using the program in Hiawatha at the same time, or not yet?
The Lucy Calkins program, yes. The units of studies
so we are already doing it.
The unit studies K-5 are all.
Okay.
And I would just add that the on-demand writing happened at the high school this year as well, 1,100 pieces of writing. And the kickoff was from a teacher at the high school, Dave Paulson, who is a professional writer. I went to the faculty meeting. He did a presentation about preparing for an on-demand writing, and Erica LeClaire, the literacy coach, had the prompt all set up, so including CTE, all students at the high school stopped and wrote for an hour and a half. And now they've taken those pieces and calibrated and beginning to craft the way to score it. So it is a K-12 continuum of learning. And it's not only in writing that we're doing that, but in other subject areas as well. But writing's been hard to kind of find a way to qualify or quantify it in a way that we can report out. But I think the authentic examples that you shared today was the best way. And I'm sure parents must be really pleased to receive those during your conferences, because nothing like an authentic piece from, and what you did as well, the beginning of the school year to where we find ourselves now and how much growth has happened. And that's what the focus should be on, is the growth that each student makes. So kudos to the school for that continuum. Nice
6,
job.
7, 8. There's 2. I was just grouping them on the lower classes there.
And I know our teachers are frantically doing report cards in every minute of their time, so to make sure that they're able to get our. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Nice.
Thank you.
Very nice.
And don't forget your pieces that you shared with us, so you guys
And your
can get them back to the kids.
Thank you. I get to see that often.
I haven't yet. We only got them just as we went to the meeting, so.
Collecting all their artifacts. That was impressive.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Impressive.
So I'll just give a moment to readjust here. Reset. Part 2 of our meeting.
Yes. Can I just make a quick comment as we're transitioning?
Yeah,
Is that
go.
okay? I'm a Summit parent and I'm here for the playground stuff, but Kelly Adams, I have a second grader and a kindergartner, and I just have to tell you, everything that's been going on with writing has just blown me away. I think it's such a, if you build it, they will come. And this faculty team has been building it. And my daughter came up to me the other day and looked at my desk calendar, and she was asking, you know, she's kind of looking at the calendar, and she pointed and she said, "This is the day I bring my giraffe report home." And I mean, she's just so excited and so proud, and they just love sharing what they've done. So it's really incredible. I think it's so far beyond what I was doing in second grade and first
Can I
grade.
mention what Gordon's how-to book was on?
Oh, sure.
Gordon's the how-to book, just amazing. I learned so much about how to play in the snow, how to be kind to a princess, how to make a family, and one of my favorites from Kelly's son is how to love.
Oh.
There are steps of how to love.
Oh. Very nice.
Thank you.
Well, it was fun sort of arriving today and finding kids outside with their books in their hands.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Excitement.
Well, just to round out this agenda item, Jen has a couple other principals reports to let us know about.
Okay, I'll start with ADL. The school-wide spelling bee champion is three-peat winner Isabel Petrucci. She will represent them in the Scripps Spelling Bee this Thursday at 3:30 at St. Michael's College. Their math counts team consists of students Santosh Rajendran, Catherine Lewis, Grace Liu, and Eric Liu. They placed third in the regional competition. This should qualify them to compete in the state competition on March 21st. They had their 45th annual basketball tournament, and the girls won the tournament. Their boys placed third. A special thank you to Duncan Harvey for running the concession stand, as well as the multitude of families who helped out with staffing that as well. The staff has completed their training together on administering the SBAC assessments. The teams chose the testing windows for their students, which will begin April 7th and run through June 5th. And they're practicing taking the assessments as well with the students. Some upcoming events for them: their standards-based learning information night is tonight at 6:30. Their student-led conferences are this Thursday the 19th from noon to 8, and the K-5s are closed that day. ADL Spring Chorus Concert is March 26th at 7 p.m., and the ADL musical Sound of Music is April 9th through the 11th, starting at 7 p.m. Thomas Fleming School, they just celebrated their Artist in Residency production, Stories Under the Big Top at the high school. That was February 17th and 18th. The students get to experience acting and dancing, singing. They had clowns, mimes, gymnasts, you name it. This was directed by Susan Palmer, and it was a huge undertaking. She actually pulled this all together in a matter of weeks. There was a lot of help from a lot of different people, and it was a really fantastic performance. The kids did a really nice job. The district math resource team is making a decision about the core math resources. This may have already occurred. And they were piloting 2 programs and evaluating them there as well. So we'll hear about that. It's coming up. They too have developed an action plan for the SBAC implementations, and they framed their testing schedule by houses there. They did send a letter home to parents and guardians with information about the SBAC, the core, and details about when their testing schedule will be. Dan wanted to share that they have a new Fleming School secretary that started today, Leanne Wilder, so we welcome her. And Fleming 5th grade student Kaito Esselstrom has qualified for the National GOB State Finals. That's going to be held March 27th at Middlebury College. Kaito will be the 14th student in the last 14 years to represent Fleming. Hiawatha School, they completed their winter and January 2015 assessments in math and literacy. Approximately 73 to 75% of their K-3 students are demonstrating proficiency in these areas. Tom's also included a chart you can look at to compare their scores to the national scores as well. And he also put in 2 other great charts you can take a look at when you get a chance. The positive trend in their time away workroom and the principal office referrals, as well as their progress made over the past few months on their action plan steps. They do have a PTO meeting coming up That is Tuesday, April 7th from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. in the school library. And those are the principal reports.
Thanks a lot. All right, if you guys are all set up, the next thing we're going to talk about is an update about the natural playground.
Okay, so I think most of you know me by now. Gracie Engel-Pierce. I've been involved with the Natural Playground Committee for 4 years. And with me today are Kelly Adams, Heather Hammock, and Nicole Giard-Jeter. Nikki and I are the co-chairs, and we've all been collaborating in a lot of different ways to represent the other functions of the group. But we're excited to update you on what we've been doing this year so far. So first and foremost, thank you so much for your support for the budget item. I know now, after having sat through some of your meetings, what the process is like of picking through all those numbers. So thank you for showing your support in that way. We have been talking a little bit about what the money would be used for and the relocation of the paved path out on the playground. We are expecting the budget to be approved. I'm going to be completely optimistic. And Bruce Murdo from Property Services says that pretty much that work should be done quickly in July. There is some summer programming with the Brownell Library that happens at the garden, which is not expected to interfere in any way, maybe a brief detour. So we're very glad about that. And we have notified the library, youth librarian, about that possibility. So we're all good. Whoops. Nope. So again, the plan, we always show you the plan, but I don't know how to actually point to this thing from a distance, but so the where you see kind of that asphalt snaky path, obviously that's the relocation of the path. It's down, yeah. It's down probably. Yeah, so anyway, it's down lower now, and you can see how from this perspective, oh, I only had this one thing, but thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. Tim, you and your gadgets, so cool.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, so right now, you know, it's kind of like this, and then it's gonna be like this, and the kiddos slide here from down at the top of the hill, and it's just gonna be so much safer and better because a lot of folks use that path. Community members, you know, there's people walking their dogs, there's people carrying crock pots. I don't know, I've seen this, and kids coming down the sliding hill at the same time. It can be really crazy. So this is going to be a great improvement. So you may ask, who is thinking about building a playground during the winter like we've had? And I'm here to tell you, we are. We never think about anything else, it seems, when we get together. We'd like to, but we've been meeting regularly. Our committee meets twice a month. We also have been meeting regularly with Principal Grunling and the district office folks who are kind enough to give us their time. And we're working out a partnership model. We're hoping that we can create something that we haven't done before. We don't know yet what those next steps are, but there's a lot of history to learn. This project has been underway for 7 years. It's been a journey. And so we're just kind of getting to know each other too. And also our group has been working on succession planning since myself and Rachel Boyers, who is very sorry she can't be here, our kids are leaving Summit, and we're kind of working out some ways that we can still provide leadership and direction, but we need to move on, some of us. And we're trying to laugh whenever we can. But this is just a nice close-up of one of the rocks out in the Word Garden, which is part of that larger reading garden. Ashley Wageman has been working with the kids on occasion to paint rocks that express feelings and thoughts, and that's been a nice partnership working with her on that as well. So the total funds raised for this project, the life of this project, has been $45,000. The funds that we've spent have been $25,000, and just to kind of quickly highlight what we've spent that money on, we have that professional design that we showed you a couple slides ago. We also felt that once we started reaching out to the community to ask for money, we wanted to be more professional. We're a 501c3. We wanted to really represent ourselves professionally, so we were able to create a logo. We also have branded marketing materials with that logo, such as brochures, business cards, letterhead, So it's really nice. We're set up really as a small operating corporation in that way. And we also been working a lot on the playground website to make it more interactive, to receive donations online. We've completed phase 1, the reading garden and game activity table area, and we've planted 3 new trees, which has been great. Just a little view of the reading garden. When we are able to get enough brick paver orders, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, this is the area that we want to pave with the brick pavers, and that'll really pull that area together so nicely. It'll be beautiful. So we're working on that. Our current fundraising goals, we're still really focused on that phase 2 that we defined as earth moving and shaping the landscape to create a large play mound for the infrastructure. Also construction and installation of a shade pavilion is something that we hope to achieve, surfacing and landscaping, but we still need $100,000. So that's the work that's cut out for us. And this is a really cool part of the playground now. Over by the preschool, you see where the fence is, the preschool play area, Rachel Boyers was able to get some free maple stumps and put those out there. And this was the first day that they were out there on the playground, and it was hard to get a stump if you were a kid. They were really popular, and it was so cute to watch them play on those. So this school year has been amazing, really. Since I have been at Summit working on this project, I have not seen this much money in the bank at once. I think it all started last year with our auction in the spring at the Darkroom Gallery. We got a great big infusion of money there. And it was also not only in money, but also infusion of goodwill and positivity and really our community coming together for this project. It was really great. In July, we started the Razoo.com crowdfunding effort. We also did pennies for the playground this year, which was an intentional way to ask kids to save up their change and bring it in. We did our first collection at the International Dinner. We're going to do another one at the Pancake Breakfast in a couple of weeks. But those kiddos raised $656, which was pretty stellar and very heartwarming. We also bumped up the gift card grab, so that's something we do to sell gift cards. We get proceeds from that. And also the brick paver program called, it's a little campaign slogan, Move the Earth and Leave Your Legacy. That's something that we're working on beyond the Summit Street School community now, really trying to focus on alumni and the members of the business community as well. So, happy moment. So as far as grants go, we don't have anything really huge in the works, but we were able to get $900 through the Heart and Soul of Essex in December, so that we can plant 3 new trees this summer. And it's really important to increase the amount of shade on this playground. It's always something that people talk about. There's just not enough of it. And it's sweltering when the sun is shining out there. There's not many places to go. Another thing that we're hoping to apply for in the fall is an $8,000 grant through the American Dermatology Association to put a shade structure on the playground. And in order to do that, you have to do, there's a requirement for a curriculum piece that we educate the kids on sun safety, and that's scheduled for sometime in the spring. We did it last year too. I know my son got a lot out of it. It was right before summer, and he remembered his sunscreen, so that was good. Another thing that we're working on with Wendy Velastro, who is very excited about this as well, is to create some ways to get some musical elements outside on the playground, hoping that that will kind of round out this initiative to create more of an outdoor classroom at Summit Street School, bringing some of the curriculum outdoors, which is going to be fabulous. So she and I are working on that. Hopefully we'll know by the end of this school year whether we're able to do a couple of cool things out there. This is an example of a wooden element at Thatcher Brook in Waterbury. And I believe that's your son who's playing on one of those and loved it. So we're hoping to bring the kids to the Thatcher Brook Natural Playground sometime, maybe this spring. Conversations with staff have led to this idea that it would be really great to get both staff and kids down there, and so it's possible we'll be able to do a school field trip and let them see what it would be like. Sorry, hold on. Whoops, I have no idea what just happened. I guess this computer was
Guess
having
the show's
problems to
over,
begin
right?
with. The show's over. Anyway, I guess really the only other thing, I'm trying to think of what else I had. We've been reaching out mostly in ways that we're trying to discover where people are hanging out, where they're going to get information. And so we're finding going online is really important. We've been doing a lot of education on Facebook, making our website more interactive, like I mentioned, doing posts on Front Porch Forum, doing regular Sum It Up articles in our newsletter. We've also been contacted by Channel 22 to do a story, which Kelly's working on with a reporter there. Don't worry about it. I think I can, unless we can just get back online, that'd probably be the best thing, just because I want to show the video at the end, and that'd be great. So, it's the tap dancing moment. So we're reaching out. We're just trying to figure out where people are, where we can reach them most effectively. Our Facebook page has really been very active. Kelly, Adam's husband, put together this amazing video, which I just want to close with and show you what it's like, because it's really brought a lot of attention. It's gotten more views than anything that we've seen on Facebook related to our playground project. And also, I did want to mention, I don't know if you did see recently, we were in the paper again, tied to, sort of awkwardly, but tied to the Shelburne Community Project. They're really trying to find a contractor where we're trying to raise money, but we are working on the same goal. So we're out there in the press, and we're doing what we can to get on to show you.
And just a quick comment, since we had planned earlier to have the walk around outside, and unfortunately Rachel Boyer's family was struck down with the flu.
Yeah.
We are eager to reschedule that. We'll figure that out somehow in the future to be able to show you the playground and where these elements would be. I don't know about you, I have a hard time looking at that two-dimensional picture and really understanding what that means. So we were sorry that couldn't happen today.
Yeah.
If there's any questions around it.
Yeah, are there any questions while we're trying to get the video up? I know you've seen a lot of us lately, so you may be, you may have
You will.
questions
Yes.
answered, but, yeah. And, you know.
No one else thanked us. You're the first ones to thank us for the budget. More, you get more next year. You're welcome.
That's one way to encourage participation.
Right?
Yeah.
If the link doesn't come up, I
Yeah.
did include it in your org notes. I'm not sure if you had a chance.
Yeah,
to-
I saw it.
You did?
I had a chance to see it, yep.
You watched
did?
it too?
Okay,
Yep.
great.
Yeah,
So-
they put a link in the org notes, so you just go right to it. So this
Yeah.
is
Okay. We've done a lot of education on Facebook, like I said. So if you're, if you have time and you want to scroll through our Facebook page, there's a lot of really cool stuff on there. That we're really proud that we've been able to come together to educate everyone in this way. And as far as education goes, the last thing I have for you, thank you, Tim, for that. And they're not stapled, but while I was on the Natural Playgrounds website recently, I came across this really sweet thing about a child's perspective on natural play. And I thought you might be interested in reading about that. It's always good to hear from the kids and see what they think.
I'm looking forward to see it in their writing.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, right, exactly. As far as talking about writing, that's for you, and so, with that, I think we are electronically challenged and
That's
probably
okay.
get back on board with where we were. So,
Well, we had you covered
We'll look
on
at it.
that Langton and
Yes.
so they got
thanks a lot.
Thank you guys again for the update, and
and all your work.
yes,
Thank you.
keep it moving forward.
Yeah.
Did you have a
Well, I
question?
was going to say we should talk about buying it. Do we have money? Does the board have a little money? Don't we have it on account
We
at our disposal? Basically, I'm leading into whether we should from the board whether the board should buy a paver.
Oh,
I see what you're saying.
Right, so I mean, from our little, I think we do have a little account. I don't know though, so
well, because
The-
with that little account, you are so generous. You buy baskets at holiday times.
Yeah, no, right, that's the thing, yeah, so.
So I'd have to go back and ask Grant.
It's
to
something we
check
could
that
consider
board line,
if-
that board line in the budget as far as whatever money Ben might even know. But we can get back to you on how
Yeah,
much
just
money is
maybe-
in there.
We could add
Then
that
that
to
would
a
let us-
future agenda item.
Right, then that would let us consider it if it was up for consideration.
Right.
I mean,
So
because we could
paver-
discuss it then. Maybe that's not something we want to do.
Right.
Okay, whatever.
But it is something to think about because
It's a
the
small
week of May 4th is, thank you, Kelly, it's Teacher
Kelly.
Appreciation Week, and you typically always do something for that as well.
Oh, right, yeah.
So, just things to keep in mind, and looking, actually, I'm glad you brought it up, because it
Ye-
can give us some direction, too, as far as what you may want to do. And you have a couple other meetings before that week, but if there's something you want to purchase, or something for the teachers,
We have just a couple meetings before that week.
Just a couple.
Just a couple.
Does a dozen? Is that still only a couple? All right. Well, we're going to move on to
Okay.
the next item. Thank you, Tim. I got that written down also.
Okay.
So, preparing for our annual meeting. Who would you like to have speak on that one?
well, you're in the auditorium this year.
Yes.
We go second.
You go second.
We go second. So we're at 7:45.
Yes.
Right.
Your moderator's Jeff Culkin.
Mm-hmm.
He's prepared to be there and call your meeting to order and review your warning.
And he's asked me if there's anything we need of him, and or actually, if I need of him. But if you have any suggestions or anything else, I really didn't have anything extra for him other than to be on time.
He's pretty skilled.
I was assuming you're going to do something for Lynette before the meeting starts.
Yes.
I did not get
gotta
what
figure
I
out-
needed to today for people to sign, but
Okay.
I will get it and leave it at central office with Ben at some point.
Okay.
And if I may tag onto that, with her departure, we're looking for someone else to be able to appoint as the Prudential Committee clerk and treasurer. And so there is a job application posted on School Spring, and it's a bit of a challenge because it has to be someone who is a registered voter within the village of Essex Junction. So it's kind of a limited pool. So as much as you can talk that up to people who are in the junction that might be qualified and interested to be the treasurer and clerk, I think most people have a good idea about the treasurer responsibilities, but the clerk piece has a lot to do with the votes, and there's some statute things that they need to be able to research and things like that. But if you know of anybody, please direct them to schoolspring.com, and there's the application is there.
Okay.
And you'd see the job description within your org notes.
Right.
And if you have any questions or anything, let us know. Also, so that you know, U46 elects a clerk, a treasurer. And so they actually changed their warning to ask the electorate for permission to shift these responsibilities to the SU treasurer, which is Kathy Barron, and to authorize her doing these tasks until you can appoint, and then those responsibilities would be shifted. So that typical warning that you're used to hearing them nominate her and elect from the floor is also changed.
Okay.
I guess my question would be the open seats that we have. Usually, have we heard of any write-ins that might come forward?
Okay, well, that was, we have one individual, Jason DeRosa, who got a petition in for the 3-year position. I've had one individual contact me via email, and I was hoping maybe she would be able to come here tonight, but otherwise I'm going to schedule a time to meet with her. It's Candace Morgan, who is interested in serving on the board, and I told her that the 2-year seat is open. And so I also told her that her name as well as any other people that come forward be willing to put out there as a write-in name. So if anybody has any other folks that contact them, let me know, and we got to make sure we get their names out there. And that's what I have to work with so far. So at least that's 2 names for 2 positions. So Jason's name will appear on the ballot, so that certainly makes it easier.
Did the Union High School Board get any takers for write-ins for the high school position yet?
Essex Town has a petition out for the Essex Town seat, but there's nothing that's been received
Still
yet for
nothing
the
from the
Essex
junction.
Junction. So, if anybody watches our ETN, there still is an open seat for the U46 board for an Essex Junction resident.
Mm-hmm. And then I will be doing the budget brief Wednesday at what's
Channel 17
in Burlington, right?
Burlington.
Yeah. So I'll be doing a budget brief on Channel 17 on Wednesday evening, recording it. So U46, I don't think he
No, I think it's only going to be
went for it. So
and your mailer, the invitation reminder mailer went out.
Should went out. She got it probably Thursday or Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully
Did you receive it? I did. The postcard?
No,
I have not seen it.
Probably won't be received until
Is it a
few more days yet.
glossy postcard, or does it look like junk mail? No, I'm serious.
No, it's good. It's
I chuck that in the garbage right away if it looks like junk mail. I toss it. I don't read it.
It was bigger this year, right?
It's
a 4x6.
like a half a sheet of paper.
Yeah, it's half a sheet, right.
It's a
As opposed to
4x6.
small postcard.
Yeah.
Hopefully you won't throw it out, Marla.
Well, I
I
haven't
would.
seen it
But if
yet.
And I haven't seen it.
So it's en route.
It's en
if
route.
you haven't
It
received
looks like this.
Right.
Okay. That
Maybe
looks
I have
good.
seen that.
So
Yeah.
that
Maybe my
should
better half
be.
threw it out.
I think
I haven't been home yet, so I don't know what came in the mail today.
what probably Grant and I should talk a little bit about is
I don't want to.
what we have to. The reason we wanted to get this out is because we wanted to make sure this information would be aligned with our annual report information, which Ben is tidying up now and getting ready to put the bow on and send to printers. And it's always interesting as far as the progress the legislature makes during the course of the session, and crossover date is a time when new bills cross over. And so I'm going to have Grant talk with you a little bit about what the legislature is thinking. He has done yeoman's work in testifying this year, and trying to share our perspective on their current thinking on caps for education. Began with a 2%, and now it's a 1.5% that's being considered. And I'll have Grant explain some of the implications for caps.
Yeah, you may have heard of, I think it's called H361 is the bill number, and a lot of it is getting publicity because it's talking about expanded, I think they call them integrated education systems is what they're looking at, but really it's a pre-K through 12 district structure instead of a supervisory union structure. I've been testifying from my position within the Vermont Association of School Boards officials. So I've been testifying from VASBO's perspective in favor of that structure, that governance structure, thinking that it would be a more efficient structure. But some of the other pieces are interesting. One is that it initiated a 2% cap on education spending per pupil, which would be very difficult. I mean, not so much for you since you have stable enrollment, but definitely for districts that have declining enrollment, and for you as well, because as I tried to recalculate it, I mean, I think I told you it was about $200,000 we would have had to cut to be able to hit this target. It was significant. Maybe that wasn't the right number, but we testified against that for VASBO as well, stating that it wasn't fair, that whether you're a high spending district or a low spending district, you're getting hit with the same limitation. So there was an equity concern. There's also the concern that they're ramping down the excess spending threshold, but not really giving that time to work while they're putting in another cap. After we left there, we found out that the House Education Committee then has decided that they're going to change it to a cap on either education spending per pupil or just education spending, which gives a little more flexibility, whichever's easier for the district. The problem is, while they did that, they also lowered the percentage to 1.5%. And that, I think, is the one where I crunched the numbers, and Essex Junction would have had to cut, I think, $210,000 in order to hit that target. So we continue to testify against that and try to keep telling them they've got something already in place called the excess spending threshold, and if you need to tweak something, tweak that. Don't put a new thing in place. We also testified in favor of the property tax and non-residential tax rates for FY16 because the language in the bill matched our assumptions for the budget. So we said, we're in favor of what you have in here because that's what we all assumed. So we thought that was in pretty good shape, and the next day we heard that House Ways and Means approved a rate that would be basically this year's rates being held level. So instead of $1 for homestead tax rate as a base rate, they are talking about going back down to 98 cents, which is this year's base rate. So, I mean, that in the near term, that's good. I mean, that's great for taxpayers, but it is an uncertainty now because we have one bill that says $1. We have something coming out of Ways and Means that says 98 cents. We've got mailers that assumed $1. We've got annual reports that are getting ready to go to the printers that say $1. And we're debating whether we try to hurry up and change those, but I'm convinced that there's not going to be something signed by the governor before your informational hearing that sets that rate in stone. So what we may do is we may just go back to the annual reports and try to add in some caveats or bullets that say draft and there's, that this may be set 2 cents lower, which might, we'll see what we can do to give context in the annual report, but just know that it may not be perfectly clean, and we may be doing last-minute changes to the informational hearing presentation as well. But I definitely think it's worth telling people as they're looking at our budget materials, the base rate may be 2 cents lower, which I think K-12 it's probably safe to estimate K-12 rate would be probably about 3 cents lower in an actual estimated tax rate number whenever you combine yours with the high school. So if you're talking about budgets and people are talking about tax rates, I think it's just worth mentioning that there's still uncertainty and there is discussion that it may drop a couple of cents, which in their final calculation might be about 3 cents because our district spending adjustment factor is, I think, about 150%. So 2 cents turns into 3. So we'll do the best we can with that as we move along, but I just wanted to make sure you were aware of some of those moving pieces.
Right. And we used the number they gave us across the state. Everyone built budgets with that same number. Right.
It makes sense, right?
Right.
And I think the biggest thing is, we've seen it happen at annual meeting for the few people who do come, then the biggest important thing is if we change our slides to be different from what was in the report, that's where we have to put big, giant, circles on this was changed. This is, and then it has a special explanation because then they're looking at a piece of paper that says, and they might have even circled it and said, what about this? They want to add a question about it. So that's mainly the thing that we have to do. And the other one is we already put those things in there that it's set and it's not set yet. Okay, that's always the same explanation.
Right.
We just have to reinforce it. If we know it, we know it at the annual meeting. And if we don't, we don't. And we just say, well, we don't know. It could be this. And maybe then we're ready to say, it's probably between these two choices. Mm-hmm. If there's a bill, if there's a bill with 98, it's probably between these two. Well, if it was 98, here's what it would be. There's some on a few pages it would cascade through to be like, instead of being $63, it would be $59 or whatever.
For the
right?
annual report, I think the best we may be able to do for the annual report, since we got to get it sent out here within the next couple of weeks, it might be just some caveated bubble, call out boxes or something. For the informational hearing, if it's sounding like it's 98 cents, we may be able to generate new charts, that say, well, the tax rate is this with 98
Right,
cents.
yeah.
The big question is those town meeting tax grids that we get. We'll have to see if we can get the
Right.
Agency of Education to run another set of those at 98 cents.
Right.
Because I can't
They're
do
different.
those.
Right.
Those are protected cells.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, right.
those are the interesting kind of pieces that we'll do the best we can with.
Right. And while it's important that all those pieces that tell you, how your tax rate is going to be influenced and all that, but in the end, what's not changing is it's still going to cost $18,627,735 to operate the schools next year. That number is
the budget number.
the budget number is still the
tax
same.
impact. Yeah.
It's just how it's going to get taxed is what's in flux. So
Yep, and I just to kind of go back to that base tax rate thing. Our initial reaction is great; it'll be less of a burden on taxpayers. But then the thing that we keep thinking about in the back of our head is next year when universal pre-K comes out, they were talking about increasing the base rate. I think 3 to 5 cents to cover universal pre-K because not everybody is postured like you are. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, wow, if we're talking,
gonna make
like
it
a
more
4-cent
next year.
increase.
you're right.
next
It's a
year,
1 year reprieve, but then it's going to be
if they
Right.
kept it at 2 cents
twice
this year
as
and it was
much of a
little
jump as it would have
extra,
been.
then next year might
Yeah.
not be so bad. But if they get it to the minimum this year, then we could be looking at a big jump next year.
Right.
So I'm kind of torn, but right now there's multiple bills to consider, and I think by informational hearing day, we'll have more conversations
Yes.
about what it's really looking like. If it's looking like it's 98 cents, then we can make some changes.
Right.
But it might be something to call out on Wednesday, that the base tax rate. As a reminder, it's caveated already that it's an assumption, that assumption might be going down instead of going up.
Does it make sense, if possible, to postpone that?
Wednesdays, I don't know that we have the option
I
for
don't know if they
that.
have the option.
Yeah. Okay. It's just a matter of
Yeah.
if so many different things are going to be different from what's spoken and recorded.
Well, like you said,
And
the
what's the
warning
value
isn't
of
going
that
to change, the
recording?
articles aren't going to
Correct.
change, the budget itself isn't going to change, it's just the
Yeah.
tax rates.
Okay.
that change.
I think,
Subject to change is what
Yeah.
backing up what you said, Mike, the main thing with the budget is I'm very proud of the budget that we did. And I feel that the budget we did was very well done by the educational leadership team. Kudos to them. They seemed to give a priority list, which we were able to go by. We did do some cuts. I think every school took a cut. And so I've got to say I'm very proud of administration and the principals, and I think we did an excellent job with our budget.
Thank you, Marla.
Thanks. Thanks for saying that.
So I met with Michael and Mark Drapa to plan the SU board meeting for March
30th.
And they suggested that we invite legislators in. So maybe at that meeting we'll have some update on where things are at least it gives us an opportunity to talk about how a cap can affect us differently. Certainly there will be a different impact for Westford. And so it'll give us an opportunity to talk across the district. But because we're here in Summit Street School right now, and because of the presentation the teachers provided for us, I kind of wanted to go back to the topic of creating expanded pre-K-12 integrated education systems, regardless of what you call it, if it's a regional ed district, if it's a consolidated or a merged. All the words, I think, confuse people. But I like these words the most about an integrated education system because, as you know, we have a regional ed district committee that Marla's your representative for, and they're looking to show educational value and purpose for a pre-K-12 structure. And today's presentation by the Summit staff shows you what happens from a K, and actually, I mean, they spoke to K through 3, but it's K through 12 when a system adopts a Lucy Culkin's Writers Workshop model, and our librarians feed the classroom teachers, and teachers are calibrating and able to meet and talk about how they would score that writing piece and what their difference is. When you have a system, you can have that consistency in place of instruction, and your teachers can share the same professional development. It matters to kids a great deal in their instructional programming to have those systems that are K through 12. And just to revisit, as far as Pride, we've had a long-standing 2-year math study committee where teachers have looked at different math programs, and Jen talked about it when she was reporting out on principals' reports. And Suzanne has been a member of that committee this year. And last Thursday, see, it's a day of infamy, they made a decision to move forward with a K through 5 math program called Bridges. And so we will be able to purchase that for all our schools in Essex Junction using Title I consolidated federal grant monies. So I look forward to the same kind of professional development that you heard teachers report out today about writing in math.
We get math
And it'll
coaches around that
math
now.
coaches around that particular unit, and that will help us flesh out that math local assessment growth data system, tracking system. Absent that, it's difficult for folks to have that a common assessment, local assessment model, and that will also build into admin inform and how we'll track that growth over time. So both those are sort of examples of what happens, and I think our system has made great strides in the last few years to really provide that K-12 focus during a time of great change through Common Core, Next Gen. As the standards have changed, we've been looking and discerning what programs or models best suit the needs for our children to obtain the standards that we have in place now. So I don't know, with having Suzanne here, if you wanted to ask her any questions about that decision, but it again speaks to that K-12 integrated system and the educational merit and value. I didn't want to not miss a moment to connect the dots of the terrific job your staff did today in presenting the Lucy Culkin's Writers Workshop. And share the excitement about a new math program.
Anybody have any immediate questions on that announcement? No? Okay.
I guess that my only question now about everything is going to be the thinking only because that's basically what I'm already doing. Actually, I had like 52 things that I could have come up with for future agenda items, but basically I erased them all because the only thing I think is going to go, I think we have to plan for success. All the integrated stuff is exactly right. That's why it's going to be a regional education district. So that's what matters. So we picked it. What did Essex Town do? And how aligned will we be already before we have to go all in one giant group?
Right. They haven't chosen a program yet. And we also, it took us 2 years to make that decision. Right. But there's so many questions about what decisions are being made immediately as we move forward. But we couldn't wait any longer.
No, right. I get it, right? Yeah. It's one of those things where there's going to be ones where we don't want to wait and we want to decide. And if they haven't decided, then that's a good one because we will. And then we'll start to have information about that. Maybe that will show that, well, it's really great. And that will help them get there. And then further down the line, we're much closer to where we want to integrate it anyway. But I mean, that's got to be the questions. It's what we're doing at work because we're changing and we're trying to. Wait a minute, what is it going to be after July?
Yes.
It's like the same. Everything that's happening almost is like, might as well start now. like think of it, and so I mean this is I think still under the annual meeting prep, right, from town meeting. I don't know if anybody else went from town meeting, right, that it was tremendous support for the town select boards, and which in conjunction with the trustees, basically the same thing, integration. So like 3 more departments just getting like integrated.
Yep.
So like essentially you saw a little bit of there was a few naysayers, but which kind of there always is. So okay, that seemed, but overwhelmingly like people, and it even meant a little bit higher short-term taxes for town residents, and it was still like supported the budget. Yeah, boom. No, there was not even a single amendment made
No,
to
not at all.
adjust the budget.
That was surprising.
Lower, for some reason or some anything. And I think there's really a lot of support for that integration. So I mean, I think that is now also part of the landscape feeding into for the red, committee. I mean, I think that is the landscape we're like operating under generally. Obviously, there's always going to be questions, right, coming up, but I think in general there's a lot of support there. So once we get that stuff, yeah. So I guess that would we want to do anything in the annual meeting? Do we want to give any time to the red committee? Right, it's an opportunity.
I think by the time the annual meeting occurs, there'll have only been 3 meetings of the red, and they are in this informational gathering stage right now. So I think we could maybe highlight their meeting dates and who the committee members are, just some of the
even a simple
factual.
thing like that, right?
Yeah.
We're still
One
getting
page.
to know each other.
Yeah.
We're still putting our questions into a pool.
Right.
We just barely elected a chair. Our
Right.
second meeting, we finally have a chair, Brendan Kinney, from the town of Essex. He was a school board
He was a school board chair there, yeah.
eons ago. And I think Brian O'Regan, to have him as the facilitator, we are so blessed. Also, I think the fact that Mark and Judy intend to be there at all the meetings is just a plus.
And Ben Dickey's created a website with Mark Zealous for the red. It was included, I think, in your org notes. So you can go there and you'll go to first meeting. It'll have all of the resources that were available to the committee members, the first meeting and the second meeting. We're looking into have a go live meeting where Vince Ganello is testing to see if we can have meetings where there's a virtual opportunity for people. You can't be there, you can sign in to go live and join the meeting virtually. Marla's group has been working on generating essential questions. So those have been posted online too, and I think inviting board members and community members to see, are those the questions that this community wants to know, and if there's some that you want Marla to ask, certainly this is
If you would print out, there's 2 different lists of questions generated, and if you would look at them, I know Tim had given me one suggestion about communication. We're talking about, I believe, communication at the next meeting.
Yep.
Mike's was regarding the rec department. So I've had that type of, read it to see if you see something missing. I mean, I've got more questions I've generated since our last meeting. I haven't given them to Brian O'Regan yet.
Yeah.
But
One thing did come up at town meeting that was also directly, I think it just reinforced the lesson learned from last time, and it was a current example that select board took a lot of heat for not saying. They said, there's gonna be savings. Well, how much savings? And they didn't say. And that was a topic they took some heat from. And I mean, that has got to be a lesson learned for this red committee, right? Is that on the consolidation, you're going to have to put up numbers of some kind, even if it's a range, something. I mean, I think that was just a total, it's still there. When you do that and you don't say what the numbers are, then there's really distrust in that.
I agree with you, Tim, but if you read the Chittenden East report, and is it the Myers? There's a Myers report. What was fascinating, that even communities that can save money and enough money, things have gone down in defeat because people want the educational opportunities. They really want focus on that. So I agree with you.
Giving you the feedback from town meeting. You guys, you're the committee.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want.
No,
I
no.
I suggest you do not say that there's going to be savings unless you can say what the numbers are.
I wholeheartedly agree
Right.
with you.
That's all I'm saying.
It was just fascinating to me doing the reading and the study on this.
Right. There can be lots of other reasons also. There are other factors.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Grant Geisler will be
was one.
presenting at the March 31st meeting. All those presentations, including mine from last meeting, are online.
Yeah, I saw
so you
those
can
on
just
there.
go in and see. We're trying to create the context of here's how a supervisory union and governance structure is functions and is structured. I think it's I think the committee was unaware that there's 3 separate governance structures within our SU. We have an incorporated school district, a town school district, and a union school district. And, you know, sometimes that resource isn't a dollar amount, but to have one governance structure that you're administering can bring a great deal of time savings. And through that, it may mean one budget vote versus separate budget votes at different times during the year. So all kinds of things. But most importantly, Grant will be speaking about what's different this time than the last time we've studied is there's tax incentives available the first year for 4 years from 8 cents, 6, 4, and 2. And also because in this particular study, there's the possibility of an SU being eliminated, which qualifies us for $150,000 and a second grant of a transition to this new structure. So our system qualifies for $300,000 of savings, which the last time we studied, that money was something that taxpayers saw as an increase in their taxes to make the transition. So there's some support and incentive from the state to help with those costs because they can realize that the amount that it takes when you're changing from 2 or 3 systems to 1. So we'll keep you posted. I think the most important thing is to visit that red website and again to send your questions to Marla and anything you want to know or follow up with. She's doing an incredible job of
My typical mouthy self.
representing your needs and your school's needs at those committee meetings.
Yes.
So for any meeting, there was one other thing, just to let people know, I copied you on it, right? Someone did ask me about the budget, that it was questions after the Essex Reporter published there after our last meeting, and it was about the budget that we passed, and so it's a clarification. I think it could be good for the slides or even for your Channel 17 thing, which is on one of the slides it says that it was like the wording is about we made the maximum reduction possible, but then the question was like, well, how can you say there's reduction but it's going up, right? But it's all about how it was from like where we started with the budget and then we reduce the number, so it's kind of like we understand what that wording means, but taking kind of out of context of the process when you're just reading the thing, they're like, well, it says wait, this says there's a reduction, but you say it's going up 4%, so you can see where they got that from. So on that particular page we might want to make an adjustment there.
Yep.
Right. I mean, I basically explained it, and I think it was understandable as the explanation. And it was also out of context because then it was the reporter article. So you didn't have the slides in front of you when you're reading the reporter article, and you just read those words, right? And so then they were confused. Well, what does that mean? Okay. And then I kind of crafted some words to kind of explain that, and I didn't hear anything back. I think it was okay, but it did kind of remind me that maybe that's we could say it a little bit better on that page. That was the only thing so far. I didn't hear anything else from that.
Thanks for reminding me on that one.
And I had written a front porch forum thing, which I sent to you guys, but I never saw it there. But I might have missed the day.
No, it went out. It was.
Did it? Okay, good.
Yeah.
I never heard any. I didn't get any feedback from that.
Yep.
So, and then maybe you'll follow up with like the
Yeah,
next.
'cause and that was one of my things I wanted to mention is that I've got another one that's going to go out tonight. Probably won't appear until Wednesday.
Yeah.
Which will just continue on, with breaking down the budget.
Right. And I was thinking we should, because I do get tweets from CCSU. I was thinking we should somehow like tweet the link to when that's out, and we would have the link to it. I don't know if we can tweet the link to a Front Porch Forum, because it's like an email that goes out.
Yeah, probably.
So I guess it doesn't exist on a website.
No, it does. It does. You can go into Front Porch Forum and look at previous posts, but I don't know how.
Yeah, right.
How you can get back to it easily. I mean, I don't know if you can do it. What you're suggesting, I don't know if that's
Right.
easily done.
Because we can't fit that all in a tweet, but we could tweet a link. And so if there was a link, I mean, I guess you could post his Front Porch Forum posting on the website, and then as a separate little thing, and then just tweet a link to that, right? And say and call it the Front Porch Forum. But if in case you missed it on Front Porch Forum, here's the, here's the posting.
Okay. I'll think about that one.
Basically, trying to put on every. Connect the same one thing into every media, basically, through each other, right? I mean, because you only have to do it once. You don't have to put it on each one.
Right.
I'm just thinking if 10 years ago you would have said we can tweet a link.
What are you even talking about? Yeah. Right.
Whole new strategies.
That's right. All right. I'd like to move on and spend a little time talking about the 2015-2016 school calendar.
Yeah. So I involved the leadership team right out of the gate with the school calendar this year. So we had plenty of input. We were able to share it on our internal communications venue, which is called the CCSU Weekly, and board members have access to that now as well, to generate ideas with teachers and to take in their input. Calendar changed dramatically at the regional level this year in a couple ways, and it made it difficult when some of those decisions happened, because I think locally people had set in on other decisions. There's an opportunity always, and the purpose of the calendar is to create common 175 school days. And I had invited Rob Reardon and Principal Robert Travers to a regional meeting to speak about, one, planning common SBAC administration timeline, because CTE is testing at CTE with SBAC this year. And everyone brought their high school principal, all 17 superintendents, but 9 in the Champlain Valley, brought their high school principal, and I was able to bring Bob, and Burlington had Mark Aliquo present. Those are our 2 tech centers within Chittenden County. So the purpose of the calendar for those 175 days is so that tech centers can operate across 9 different sending high schools to a tech center and have the same days for programming. So it's really preservation of the same student days for programming for students that receive some of their programs from the Center for Technology in Essex and Burlington. Having said that, what was atypical also in this calendar is Labor Day appears as late as Labor Day can appear, and it appears on the 7th. So we have our graduated structure of 3 days, 4 days, 5 days is going to be different this year. It'll be 3 days, 5 days, and 4 days. There was some concern about starting early, but it's been typical that we start those 3 days in August, and so we maintain that. That's the same start date. The other commitment to this calendar, as I tell you, I was going to not meet those commitments, was to be totally aligned as much as possible with Essex Town, and to take this board's guidance as far as limiting early release days, so there was continuity of programming. So The third thing that happened was we had received an email because of the change of superintendents in Burlington. There was a letter of agreement years ago to respect 2 holy days, Yom Kippur, which next year begins at sundown on the 22nd, and 23rd is the actual Yom Kippur religious observance, and Eid al-Fitr, which occurs not during the school year calendar this year. It appears in the summer. So what has always been agreed is those would be non-common days. So some schools can have it on that day, some schools can have the day off. We have always observed only federal and state holidays and not religious holidays. So we maintained our current practice, and we'll be in school on the 23rd. However, Essex Town is not going to have school on that day. So that was the first blip in our ability to maintain common calendars this year.
September?
This is September.
September, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now I'm in October.
Yeah.
And in October, typically we've had the teacher convention days. This is way historical, for the 15th and 16th. And Bob Travers had asked that there be a common statewide in-service day for technical centers, because he's the president of technical centers across the state now. So what happened was the superintendents created the 8th, I'm pretty sure it's 8th of October as that day across the state for technical center in service. So it was important for us not to change, to have us have a different date there. So we're going to use that, I'm sorry, it's the 9th. We're going to use the 8th, the evening of the 8th, where there'll be one early release for ADL for parent conferences, and the high school will be having parent conferences that night, and then the 9th is going to be an in-service. So that's where you have your first early release. So it's going to appear on the 8th that evening. The 9th is a PD day, followed by the 12th, which is going to be a vacation day. And that follows where the teachers have always worked late on the night of the 15th, and then they've had, on the 14th, and then they had PD on the 15th, and then they had the 16th as a vacation day. So this way thinking was, let's stretch that long weekend where they'll do parent conferences, have a PD day, and then have a day off on the 12th.
So it's only early release for ADL.
Correct.
The K through.
Correct. And K through 5, they're going to have flexible conferences like after school. So they'll have a day count for that instead of having it all chunked in on that one evening. But the bigger schools need that span of time for scheduling. Essex Town will be keeping their 15th and 16th. So again, we're going to be off a little bit on when we conference and our time off. We maintained now in November 2 days, the 23rd and 24th will be PD days, and as they were this year, so there's no change there. We've extended the 21st and 22nd of December to be student days. So that we have in common. The other day that we will not have in common again this year with Essex Town will be Martin Luther King Day. We have traditionally used this as a PD day. It falls in the time of year when that important time to calibrate with teachers is January 18th. So that will be a PD day. It will be a student day for Essex Town, and they'll be asking for waivers from the regional superintendents to have that be although it's a non-common day, and those are typically granted at K-8 levels. But at the high school level, it's really important to maintain, because we're K-12, we really try to maintain the regional calendar. I don't think there's too much different, except for this year
Town
we
meeting.
did go to school on town meeting day.
What happened?
What happened was
We went back.
75 teachers were affected by it, having to take personal days to attend their own town meetings, and the cost of that didn't outweigh having the time off. So
Okay.
we are going to go back to having that time off and not to have substitutes in on a day. It just didn't make good sense for our kids and for instruction. So those will be days off. And that's the reason why you see the 21st and 22nd of December got added as student days to compensate
Basically
for
makes up for
yeah,
that.
we switched up that time. Then in March, on the 21st, we have PD on that day, and that'll be PD at pre-K 5, and ADL will be conferencing from noon to 8, so that'll be another early release for ADL. And then typical April vacation, on the 19th, will be all-day conferences at pre-K 5, and ADL will have a PD day, and we're tentatively scheduled for the 13th of June to be our last day, but we all know that there'll be 1 or 2 probably snow days, and we'll, plan accordingly. Can I answer any questions? So we did limit from this year's 4 to just ADL and having 2 early releases. The end of the last day of school is typically an early release as well for PD.
So August with the 20th and 21st with the principal district discretion is whether they'll have those or not.
So thank you for bringing that up. At our educational leadership team meeting, we talked about, especially with this new math program coming in, everybody has booked math coaches and literacy coaches on those days because that's the regional calendar. And so it's really hard for teams of teachers to meet with specialists and coaches. So what we gave, or what we're providing, is some discretion. So for example, if 2 or 3 teams want to meet during the summer with Beth Moore when she has availability, Suzanne has the discretion to say, then you can take it somewhere else, and provide that flexibility. We kind of want to create the same thinking around choices and opportunities for our own teachers' PD as we are for kids. And so, the discretion isn't so much for individuals, and it's for full days, not partial days. But at least it exists for those specialty opportunities. Sometimes our art teachers have an opportunity to meet with an artist in resident, and they don't have a way to make that time work. So it's new in thinking. I know it's generating some excitement for our teachers, so we're looking forward to the additional tracking work our principals will have to manage, but I think it'll meet some needs that are unmet now, provide some flexibility that we currently don't have. Other questions?
No, it's well done.
I'm glad the days went back in February. I heard a lot about that this past vacation.
Yeah, there was a lot of feedback from teachers, and when we went back and tracked it, we realized how many of our teachers, they come from various areas of the state, that there are a lot of places that still do
daytime town meeting.
Hold that town meeting time. So just to be respectful to everyone, and
Yeah, it should be a state holiday. That would take care of the whole thing.
that would. So I do
Sure, they're working on
regret
it.
that we're not as aligned as we have been in the past with the AT, but because I think that is a huge disservice to our families when the same community has disparate calendars, but,
We've got a big solution for that, right, Mara?
but I am pleased that we came together as a leadership team and agreed upon many similar.
They can vote on having the same calendar in November.
That's right.
That's
Big vote.
That's right, because not all families can do my family's solution, which was just have all your kids at the same time. So then they're all in the same
Oh,
grade.
right.
So then there's no worries about being in
Yeah, there you
different
go.
schools.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So let's have a brief discussion on from task teams. Communications.
We poked at the red. We want to communicate the red stuff. So
Right.
that's what we need from them. So we brought that up to say, what do you want to communicate? What do we want to do? We can help with that. So, and I think we needed a rep too. So maybe you guys identified a rep to us. Liz was going to bring that to the red meeting. That we need a tie. We need like a direct tie. Like we need a red committee rep to be in our meeting, basically, be on our communications committee.
I think our next meeting is the 31st, and that's when we'll discuss.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's where that website's going to be really critically helpful. And I know Ben sent out the.
I've reached out to a couple people. I think I sent you an email. I was working with Liz trying to set up a meeting before the 31st.
Yeah.
And also Kim Finney from Westford, and then I just got a rep from Essex Town.
Oh, good.
Today.
Okay.
So we're trying to set up a meeting, hopefully for next week.
Okay, I
Just
think
like
I
go
could do
back.
either of those dates. Did I send that back to you? Okay, yeah, I can. I think I can do either one. Yeah, I like the 24th better. Yeah, okay.
All right.
But yeah, it'd be good maybe just have one quick meeting before the meeting.
Right.
And then.
Because there's a few things we could talk about even before they
Yeah.
go, kind of idea stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Policy.
Policy was canceled, and we have a meeting Wednesday, this Wednesday.
Right.
6:30.
Okay.
Leaders at work. We met on, boy, we've been changing our nights. I've already
Tuesday.
forgotten Tuesday night. And we're still working on the needs and assessments and the draft of the 2015-16 annual work plan. So the chairs are still taking input, and I believe it will be discussed at the CCSU level on March 30th.
Well,
But not the final, not the
Right.
final, but.
right. Put out the draft and accept, basically have any other questions or comments taken in, but we won't have a big discussion at the meeting. That will be taken back to leaders at work.
I think the hardest thing at Leaders at Work is we've added black, we have a color scheme. And it's red, green, blue, and black is pretty much the things that we expect superintendents that we know are gonna be occurring. Because the annual work plan is just so detailed, and with everything going on, we couldn't take things technically off. We were trying to take some things off, and there was very little that we could, so.
And I did bring Tim, I brought your questions, comments to the leaders at work, and the AWP draft has been, it was modified a little bit to incorporate some of what you had asked.
Great. Super.
And we canceled
Yeah, I didn't
our
have a lot.
April meeting because there's just a lot of meetings going on in April, and we're in pretty good shape, Leaders at Work. So we have set our meetings. I didn't bring the dates with me, I'm sorry, for May and June. And we're gonna be tackling pretty soon the language used in the superintendent's assessment piece. So if you have any changes of the assessment of the superintendent, the language
In the rubric.
in the rubric portion, please get those changes
That gets sent out?
to
I know that
chairs.
we sent out the link to the annual work plan, and I reviewed that.
I can send it out to you again.
Yeah.
It's probably, a while ago.
Yeah, I mean, that part hasn't changed. I mean, that the language that the last time you had had an assessment document, and that's
It's the
what we're going to be
same
looking
one,
at.
right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And modifying, and yeah, I guess personalizing it for the SU.
Yep.
Yeah, personalizing it, because I think going through this for the first time last year, some people had concerns with some of the language used.
Just wasn't as precise as we would like, or
Right.
our own way of saying it, I guess, is what we're
Yep.
looking at changing it to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my biggest thing was the clarity on what are those things that are like, it's meant to be a progression from like the least amount to like the most, you're a superstar, but like making that clear that that's what that is.
Exactly.
To go through there.
Right. That's part of this part of this process that we
Okay.
want to take a look at and adjust.
And the change in language will not be in time for, probably will not be in time for the superintendent's summative eval in July time period, but, well.
It's constantly getting upgraded, so whatever.
Right.
I don't
Yep.
think it matters. Right. It's okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's pretty much where we are with that committee.
Thank you all. All right. Consent agenda. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the consent
I will
agenda?
make a motion that we approve the warrants. The consent agenda, which includes the approving of warrants, the approving of the meeting minutes, 129:15, 2/9/15, and 2/13/15, reduction in force, issuance of employment contracts, requests for activity recognition, and approve the recommendations for professional appointments.
Do I have a second on the motion for the consent agenda?
Second.
Tim.
Motion.
Any further discussion? No? Okay, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda motion made by Marla, seconded by Tim, say aye. Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Excellent. So with the issuance of employment contracts, after the meeting, anybody who can stay and sign.
You need multiple members to sign? Is that
I think it's just one member per
Just one member.
per contract. But if we can split it out a little bit, it'll go a little bit faster.
No problem.
But if you can, that's fine. We just.
Yep.
I don't want to do that during the meeting. I don't want to do it.
Yeah, let's just do it
afterward.
after.
Right. All right. So future agenda items. So the first thing I have was one that Tim had suggested, discussing possibly a paver for the natural playground sponsored by the PC. So that's one. Anything else that comes to mind?
Well, your next meeting is your reorg.
That's our reorg.
Right.
So by the time you get through that.
Right.
Yeah.
One thing I want. Oh, yeah.
So my item, my thing that I think we should be doing, because we're not doing it at the SU level, which is where I really think we should be doing it, but since they're not going to do it, we're not talking about strategic planning, but that is now something that I've obliterated from my wants and desires. And because what would be the point? It's the red board that has to talk about it, right? We could talk about it, but then it would be very focused on K-8. I'm not even sure we need to do the training. Because the training was going to lead into, that topic for, Essex Junction K-8. What other topic could we possibly talk about first, and so like, it needs to be rethought, right? I mean, I think that the thing, in that perspective, it's like the only thing we should talk about is related to transition plan.
The
short term over the 2 years.
The problem though, Tim, even
Right.
if the red study group is approved, the voters approve it, the red study, the redistricting will have a new board that
Yep.
are working for a year, and your local boards might be working for a while too, finishing up all the business.
Oh, I know.
So you still have to train you're talking about training new members, right?
No, it's a more specific thing about long-term strategic planning, right? That's really the subject I was talking about. But yeah, now, like, really, why would we enter into that? Like, we can't plan for all possibilities. It's like, let's plan for
So
success
basically, we have
on the
two.
red,
We have two
right?
plans. Two plans, which is A, if the red is recommended and approved. B, recommended, not approved, or not even recommended.
Right.
And
And we'll deal with that at that. We'll cross that bridge when you come to. Is basically what I'm saying. I would
Right.
I would
However,
take that approach.
we would be
Right.
planning prior
doing what
to
we're
that
doing.
decision being made. So we'd have to, I guess, at some point in the early, after we reorg, we have to make some type of plan which, I guess, addresses both possibilities.
Well,
ahead of time.
But I guess that's what I'm saying. Is
Yes.
We don't have that kind of
Right.
bandwidth. So we got to be focused. Like I don't have that bandwidth. I can't support both. So I say we just, and if what that means is it's all couched in if it's approved or whatever, then we just do whatever we have to do to say that. But that actually makes our jobs easier, right? Like,
yes.
I don't have to think 25 years into the future. If I get on the red board, if I decide I want to be on the red board, then I can do that, right? But that's kind of why would we do that? Why would we plan what does Essex Junction K-8 want to be in 20 years, right? It wouldn't make sense when we really are going in that direction. The state is going in that direction. Everything is going in that direction, right? There's huge savings if we do and incentives to do it, right? So it's like plan for success. That's basically my kind of proposal, right? And not minimize the sort of embarking on things that don't fit in with that.
Okay. I have to think about that a little more.
Yeah. So I don't know what that means exactly, but it means for me things that I wouldn't bring up for future agenda items for sure.
Okay.
And I think the question is which ones does it bring up?
Right.
And so one particular one is it's actually a future agenda item for, that's something that we actually should talk about on March 24th at our next meeting, which is with the trustees, is Parks and Rec.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, and we are fundamentally involved in that as the current owners of it, and so we might as well just open up with the discussion and start talking about what's going to happen and what would happen and how it has to get divested from inside, here or not or whatever. What are people thinking? Just start to just get that out.
Yep.
And then we can feed it back through Marla. Marla can take it back to the
one
Red
question
Committee.
I have put in that I've asked is, can the new red district, could it include Essex Parks and Rec? That's one of my questions. Legally, can Essex Rec and Park be a part of the new district? Because as we talk with the trustees, I suspect as a board, we'd want to know how much it's going to cost to separate Essex Recs and Park from the school district, their systems, and how much that's going to cost taxpayers. Because is that going to happen from us as a Prudential Committee with the trustees, or is that going to be part of the Red Study Group, which is what I think Mike had asked me to ask as a question.
And the thing is, we'll talk about it with the trustees. I think it's also the bigger context of how it fits in with the old conversation was does the Prudential Committee own it, or do the trustees? But now there's actually a much bigger conversation because of all the consolidations that the town and the village have done, that basically Parks and Rec is next up on the list. And anyway, and so like what, and then they're talking about regional park district and there's these other things that we're talking about that are actually combining the whole thing, and which means tearing it out of where it is now anyway.
So why spend money to dismantle something and then have to spend money again?
No, that's the way that you would do it, is at the same time you twin the things together, I think, for efficiency.
Right, yeah.
We gotta be, I think we gotta think strategically, even though we're not doing strategic planning.
So yeah, just go into that. That should be basically a big topic of our meeting with the
Another
trustees.
board member was telling me too that the trend nowadays is for school districts to want rec and parks as part of their organization, so they're so intertwined with the children. So I've got to follow up with him and get the literature and the readings on that. That happened to be Mark from Westford.
Yeah, you certainly can see the advantage of basically an all-day plan for where to go from school to after school, that the handoff is much, is very fluid, which is kind of what we have available to us right now.
Right.
But
And Westford
So-
has, a municipal recreation as well.
Right, so does the town.
It's the same thing,
Right.
other than you.
Right.
Right.
Everyone has
Yeah.
municipal.
Right. One other thing I want to mention is, so the VSBA is, doing workshops for the essential work of school boards, and we're going to have two new members. The next one they have that's scheduled that's nearby is in Winooski, but that's on April 2nd.
Right.
So that's before
We have a new member.
we have new members.
They can go.
Although people are interested in writing in and
Public
they're
meeting, they can
interested in
go.
being on a ballot, you can at least tell them about it if
Right.
they're
Yeah.
interested in attending.
Well, that's in Winooski, and then on May 2nd there's in Montpelier, and then on May 5th there's also a webinar. So, and I just bring it up just because veteran board members can also benefit from the discussion and going through the lesson or the workshop.
So where's the April 2nd?
It's in Winooski, at Winooski High School.
I've been
What
scheduled.
time do they start it?
It's from 5 to 8:30.
I've been
Except
sched-
for the one in Montpelier. The one in Montpelier is 9 a.m. to noon.
It's on a Saturday.
Yes, it is, Saturday, May 2nd. And then the webinar is from 6 to 7 p.m. on the 5th of May, which is a Tuesday. There is a cost associated with these things, but I just wanted to put it out there.
I think it's
And
really important that you and I coordinate because I've been scheduled now to be in Westford on the 2nd, so I'm not available
right.
as they figure out their next steps with their budget. But I wouldn't want anybody to go without one of us, somebody new.
Right.
so-
I was also thinking as many of us that could go at the same time would be beneficial.
Absolutely.
So anyway, just putting that out there.
May 2nd is Montpelier.
Yes, May 2nd is Montpelier.
So one thing
Yes.
I have been thinking about, I think it could be useful discussion with the new members, because then it could be kind of a relearning, and for them learning it. I've been thinking about that piece of how do we ensure that the schools are well run? What does that actually mean? And I think we do that kind of with every meeting. We do it in all these little different ways, but I don't think we have a rubric. I don't think we have a thing where we really are sure that we've checked off all the things in our way that us as representatives of the community are doing that part of our job. I think we do it all these different ways, but how do we know we're doing it the best that we can and that we are continuously improving how we do it? And then so maybe it's almost like review. Oh yeah, we do that. Oh right, we do that at this time, and then that could also be a way to sort of indoctrinate the new members to kind of be like, okay, because they just get dropped in April. You don't have any context for like what happened the rest of this. Wait, what did you already do this year? Where are you in a cycle or whatever? I mean, they get a lot of that through the training, so that's pretty good. But this could be a way to. Maybe there's also other topics that we
School
could also
action
do
plans
this
are
with.
going to be interesting this year
The-
because it's going to be the fall.
In the
because
fall.
of
Right, that's going to go
SBAC.
move to the fall, so it gives them some more time before they hit in 2 months after being on the board. So okay, great, but maybe we could just kind of do a discussion around that. Maybe you guys could talk beforehand, or maybe there's something that we could come in with something, a kind of a framework, and then we could fill in pieces, or we could say, well, geez, we don't have a lot on this topic area, or and maybe that's even planning into next year. So this is one where maybe it's still good to do this, even if we
Even if we're not,
informs even going into the red, or
even if we
something
don't
like that.
exist in another year and a half.
Right.
Okay.
That's still okay.
All right, so I've got those items. Anything else? I'd like to thank Principal
good.
Grundling for hosting us
Yes.
today and for inviting all the staff in to present writing. That was fantastic. Thank you very much.
Very good.
And so we are adjourned.